All right, everybody. Today, it's hard to share something like this, but it's what I do on this channel. I want to be transparent through the good times and the bad times. And right now, we're having some tough times. The market's been very volatile. It's been going down. We've seen a lot of even big tech companies starting to take a nosedive. So it's hit my portfolio and it's hit it down to a new low. And that low is 8%. Now, before that, I was at a high at the end of 2021 with a 23% growth. So you can see how far it's gone down. My last low was 9%, so this is a percent below my previous low. So I'm at only 2,700 bucks in the green, which is still good, but I want to turn things around. So I'm going to go over the 5 best stocks in my portfolio and the 5 biggest losers and kind of my end game here. What do I plan on doing if these stocks keep going down, if we're headed into a recession? So I think it's good we go into the bad news first. Before I do, if you appreciate this type of transparency, please subscribe to my channel. I have diverse content. I share my opinions, my strategies. I think it's always good to get another opinion. So that's what you're going to get on this channel, and we're all learning together, right? I'm going to learn something from some of these stocks here that have gone down, some of the mistakes I've made, and that's what I'm going to share with you guys. So let's get started. Facebook, we're going to go over the 5 losers first. Facebook is in the #1 spot. And with Facebook, we can see here, and I go through the dollar value, and I should say Meta, but it's down a little over $1,000. And with Facebook, I think it's getting a lot of, harsh criticism from politicians on this, it being a big tech company and then wanting to regulate them even more, which is hurting them on the opposite end with a lot of their users saying they're regulating free speech. So I think they're getting hit from 2 sides, and it's really hard to balance that. We see Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter. So for me, though, I still see Facebook as a very huge cash-generating machine. They're going heavily into the metaverse, which I feel does have a future. Their Oculuses appear to have been very successful. I'm excited to see some numbers on that, and that's bringing in the next generation, which is what they need. So I think there's all these opportunities that they have. I don't think Facebook's at risk like Twitter is of being taken over. Mark Zuckerberg has very much protected his ownership here. But regardless, you have to take out the noise and look at this company at the face value, what it is. It's still generating a ton of cash. It has the largest social media user base. And I just see that as a positive for this company to make future growth moves. And so we'll see. I'm going to be hanging on this to this stock for now. I'll be averaging down, but not very heavily because it's already a big portion of my portfolio. Next stock I want to talk about is Tattooed Chef. Now, Tattooed Chef is one that I got into at probably the wrong time. I got into this stock before all the small caps started dropping. Of course, I can't predict the future, but I should have seen how the stock market went up so heavily that there had to have been, with the increasing inflation, there had to have been one sector that would probably be hurt the most, and that is small caps. With inflation, it's harder for these companies to thrive, unlike those companies that have the big cash flows. So I think with Tattooed Chef, definitely inflation is going to hurt them. If a recession happens, that will affect them big time. But long term is what I'm looking at. I still feel it's in a growing industry. That's the plant food-based industry. It's a vertically integrated company, so I think it can manage its expenses better than others. And it's expanding its SKUs and its products into a lot of different stores very rapidly. So I think eventually that revenue is going to catch up. So I will slowly average down in my position, but so far it's lost me a little over $500. So I definitely am still willing to hold on to this company, give it a few more years, and see what happens. Next stock, one of the next biggest loser, is AT&T, no surprise, but this one has improved a lot. It was in the 20% decline in my losses, but now it's only 14.76% of a loss. It's only a little over $200. AT&T to me is a slow growth company, but I think it will do well if a recession happens. It's something that everyone has to have, and that's internet. But more so, I think with the recent change that it did in rolling off Warner Bros. And that whole aspect, and really focusing on what they are really meant to do best and getting rid of debt, focusing on reducing that debt, I think that's going to start turning the gears around. It already has. And AT&T, I think, will slowly start coming back into some growth in its stock. And so I think that this is still providing a great dividend, even though they cut it in half. It's at a 5.69% right now. And that's still a very solid dividend. And now it has a better payout ratio. And that's something that I think if you're willing to put up with some slow growth for that dividend, this is a great one. AT&T, I want to get into the green before I make a decision because I still think lowering that debt and stuff is going to really benefit them. They're still a company that has a huge amount of customers. So I don't know. This is one that I still plan on holding. I don't plan on selling. But when it gets into the green, I'm going to look at it more heavily to see if their future, reducing of debt is still a big part of their ambitions, because I think that's key to this stock growing. The next one, biggest loser, kind of goes with AT&T because it's what we got shares of if you own AT&T, and that's Warner Bros. Discovery. Now, this one is down $116, so it kind of goes with AT&T because these shares spun off of their business. But it's a streaming company, which they're all getting hit really hard right now because of the fallout of Netflix. It's also a new company, so it has a lot to prove, and it came with a lot of debt. That was part of the deal. So that's a lot that's working against it, but I think there's some good things going for it. It's actually growing its subscriber base, unlike Netflix, and it has something that Netflix doesn't. They have ad revenue that they can utilize because they do have commercial tiers. And I think it's a quality company. Warner Bros., DC, all the things that it has, and now with Discovery, I think it's something that is a solid pick. So I do plan on holding this. I do plan on keeping it at least for the foreseeable future because I think it has potential to be a growth company. So Warner Bros. I will be keeping. Now the next one is 3M. Now with 3M, I am down $55. So this one, kind of barely makes it, but the top 5 is what I wanted to cover. With 3M, they are dealing with a lot of lawsuits on their products, and they're a slow growing company. They have been for a while. But what I like about them and why I will hold on is they do have a diverse product catalog. They also pay a really good dividend, about 4% right now. I feel they are undervalued. They're a sturdy recession play. A lot of people, I think during a recession, will do DIY things, and there's a lot of things that you buy in Home Depot and things like that that are 3M products. So one that I will hold on to and probably add to should I find myself with some extra cash that I'm wanting to place somewhere. So those are my 5 biggest losers. Now I want to go to my 5 biggest winners. And you'll see here, Microsoft, Abbvie, SCHD, Realty Income Corp, and energy ETF called Fenny. So let's go into these quickly. With Microsoft, I am up almost $600, and that's after a decent drop with this stock. Microsoft is a quality company. They have a huge moat. They bring in large amounts of cash. They are very heavy on the subscription-based services, which is pretty dependable revenue. They have sticky products. Their gaming is excellent, and it might grow pretty heavily if they get Activision Blizzard. So I see a lot of positives. The only, it's not really a negative, but with their cloud service, Amazon is so ahead that Microsoft is in second place, but I think it's a distant second place. So we'll see if they can make up any ground there. But overall, Microsoft is such a solid play, and I definitely would love to add to this company more. The next one, the second one that's done well for me is Abbvie. Now this one I'm up $579. It's been one of my top growers at 70%. And for Abbvie, they just keep getting regulatory approvals for immunology drugs and for blood cancer therapeutics. They have a strong dividend of 3.43%. The negative is their Humira patent is going to be running out, but they do have more drugs in the pipeline lined up to kind of offset that. And there's always competition with these pharmaceutical drug companies, so that's something to always look out for. But I think it's still a solid company that I will stay invested in, and it pays a great dividend as well. The next one is the good old, my favorite ETF as far as dividends go, and that's SCHD. This one is up $507. Why I love this company. I've done a video before on why why I do think it's the best dividend growing ETF out there. But they have dividend growth companies that they put into their portfolio that outperform their peers. So they're constantly putting the best of the best in there. You know, it's something that they readjust every so often. And I think it's just a good recession play as well, because people are going to start going into dividend companies because that offsets that loss, right? Next up is going to be Realty Income Corporation, or ticker symbol O. This one's up $444. With Realty Income, it's kind of a boring but reliable REIT. And I could see some recession pressures with this one, with tenants maybe not being able to afford their rent. But they still have some mostly quality tenants. And you know, their dividend is quite attractive at almost 4%. I think it's at 3.9%. So this is one I don't think I'll really add to unless if it has some very healthy dips, because it's already a decent part of my portfolio and also among my REITs. I'd rather add to Vici more heavily in my opinion, but this is one that has done very well for me. So the last one is that energy ETF. Its ticker symbol is FENY. It's a Fidelity ETF, and it's up $410. I don't have much money in this, but you'll see it's up 72%. Of course, with the crisis going on right now with Russia, there's a lot of demand for oil and energy. So I don't think this is a long-term winner. Like, you know, I think eventually it'll cool off pretty heavily. But in the short term, it's a great play. And I will say that all these companies, you know, like Exxon and Chevron, they're going to adapt to green energy. They have to in order to survive. So I still think that this is one that once I think it cools off quite a bit, I'll add some money to. But right now it's done very well for me just due to the environment out there in the world. So with all these, you know, providing the ups and downs, again, it's gotten me to a low of about 8%. But what I want to say is there's something else that I have in my tool bag, and that is that I have a mixture of growth stocks and dividend growth stocks. So I may be down, but I'm collecting dividends. So let's see what that looks like. Right now, so far this year, I've collected $270 worth of dividends. I'm expected to get over $1,000 this year. So this is the power of investing, and each year that I've been investing, the snowball effect is happening, and I'm getting more each year, each month compared to the prior year. My plan is to keep investing in quality companies, and these companies that are going to get hit the most during the recession are the ones I'm going to focus on buying heavily, because I did another video where I showed the recessions are little blips on the history of the stock market, but the growth that occurs after that is immense. And so I want to focus on those companies that I think are being heavily oversold and afterwards will benefit greatly and shoot right back up. So that's simply my strategy is to focus on quality companies with long-term growth. Some examples are Microsoft, which I already have in my portfolio. Other companies are Apple, and then I'm looking into getting into Amazon. And so I think that's a pretty smart strategy on my end. Let me know if you see any, you know, flaws in that. But I think during these short recessions that last on average 11 months versus the growth that happens on average 69 months after a recession, wouldn't you want to focus on that growth part? I sure would. You can try to play safe, but then coming out of that, those are the stocks that are going to underperform. And during the recession, they're just going to kind of help hold you up. I'm okay with the dips as long as I feel like I'm investing in companies that are really going to slingshot up afterwards. So I think Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Home Depot, Warner Bros. Discovery, a lot of these companies that are being hit pretty heavily are the ones that are going to benefit more so after a recession, because when the money starts flooding back in, it's going to go to these companies. Of course, Tattooed Chef will benefit, but they're going to be hit even harder during a recession, and who knows what their growth will be afterwards, because a lot depends on that they're small and what can they do to really get out there and take advantage of a recovery. So that's what I want to share with you, just being transparent, a quick video on my portfolio, how it's doing, the good stocks, the stocks that aren't doing so well, my quick opinion and view on them. So I hope this was beneficial. Let me know how your portfolio is doing, some of your winners, some of your losers. your own strategy. Is it different from mine? Do you want to go to safe stocks, or do you think it's good to invest in those that are being hurt, that will rocket back up after any type of recession or dip or whatever you want to call what's going on right now? Regardless, we're having some volatility and some hard times. So I'm trying to prepare myself for those good times, which seem to last a heck of a lot longer in the stock market. So with that said, I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Mark Arnold's Finance.